Welcome again to another episode. This time we're going to talk about planning, prioritisation and uncertainty. And I'll pass over to Lise to start talking about this.
So this episode is going to be about when you have a cancer diagnosis, what is it like during the first week, the first month, the first 3 months? What about the prognosis and what comes next? So Peter, what was it like for you when you first got your diagnosis?
Before the uncertainty and the worry and the stress and everything from the point where the GP thought there was something wrong and I wasn't sure there was, and to the point where the diagnosis, actually when the diagnosis and the treatment was, there was great relief, but in that month or so period it was just really, didn't know how to plan anything. It was just this huge stress, wasn't sleeping at all well, just what on earth am I going to be dying in a month or something like that.
I remember that, and there was a certain sort of mood of panic. You started to, what they call, put your affairs in order. Do you remember that?
I do, of course, yeah, and because I was on the steroids and I couldn't really sleep very well, I was up for about 4 hours every night between about 1 and 5. That gave me time, inverted commas, to sit at the desk I'm at the moment and just pull stuff together, start working on redoing my will, and my financial affairs are a bit complicated because of my life in the last decade or so of investing in early stage companies which you can't turn into cash. They're just shares until they either go bust or they return. So there's lots and lots and lots of stuff to do to make sure that if I was to die in a very short time, somebody somewhere could try and pick up the pieces.
And then when we started the treatment, then you went into a phase where you had to think about the timing of healthcare interventions and trying to live your life.
Yeah, that was difficult again because I was still pretty unwell because of the end of the steroids, and the treatment of course took probably 2, 3, 4 weeks before it kicked in, and also there was the risk that it doesn't work at all. For some people the treatment on the therapy just doesn't work, so there was a period then of uncertainty. So what could I plan? I also didn't know what might happen. There are certain side effects of the treatment I'm on were pretty severe, which require hospitalisation and sometimes at short notice. So actually planning to say to go away, even a few hours from home, a few hours from Cambridge, was really, really difficult. Never mind the fact that I actually went to Paris at one point, which was an interesting discussion with the oncologist.
Yes, it was. And then of course there's very simple things like, if you do want to travel, things like insurance.
Insurance is really difficult. I can only relate my own experience because everybody's different, and you see, particularly on the Facebook groups, people who are getting quotes of £3,000 for 2 weeks away, which of course is completely impossible for most people. So in my case, I actually have a company policy, one of the 2 companies I own, and that doesn't have any medical background on it. So in other words, I don't need to, it's a sort of generic policy, so I've got that, but I'm really not sure what would happen if I claimed on that. But it gives peace of mind, and like we do with many things in our lives, we self-insure. We don't take out every single type of insurance we need, or could have, sorry, not need, although the insurance company would love to sell us. So I do self-insure and just take my own risk that if something happened, particularly if it's not going to happen too suddenly, and I'm not that far away, jumping on an aeroplane if I'm not too ill to get back for support, health support, particularly back here at my own hospital where they know what's going on, is possible.
Another thing we did in those early days was 2 particular things. One was we made a sort of trip around the country, seeing very old friends and relatives you don't see very often, and making sure we saw all of those people. That was one strand. The other strand was you made sure you spent some special quality time with each of your children, one-on-one. Do you remember that period?
Yes. So I called it my last supper tour, which is a really strange thing to call it, where I went to see, I come from Hull, I've got quite a lot of cousins up there. I've got some very close friends, that aren't easily accessible just with a day's drive or train ride from Cambridge. So we spent some time up in Hull with cousins there. I spent some time down in the West Country where my middle son died, and spent some time just with other friends. And then on top of that, I spent a good long weekend both with my eldest son Matt, and we went walking in the Peak District, and my youngest son Alan, we spent some time in London doing cool things like go-karting and so on. So just spend some real time together. And that really helped me, I think. As it turns out, this was a year ago, and a year later I'm looking absolutely fine, as if I haven't even got cancer at all at the moment.
So now, what I say to people is that you and I were living in 3-month instalments, from scan to scan. And how is that? How would you say that's changed your life approach?
Yeah, so this is, everybody goes through scans. If you've got some cancer, some people, you get to the point after maybe 10 years the scans are not occurring at all. But because the advanced cancer I've got, we live from 3 months to 3 months. And so I tend to plan things to get stuff done within the 3 months. Of course, the cancer could have mutated already as I'm talking to you. And, the next scan might go horribly wrong. But I've got the next scans at the late March. So the plan is to go back to South America this week and spend 5 weeks there, which we had to cancel, unfortunately, due to my son's death. And then move on to planning the next quarter. This is after the scans get back, we'll get the results at the end of March. There's the April, May, June quarter, and there we'll travel somewhere else. We're working on that. We won't actually commit fully to it until closer to the time. So living on 3-month cycles effectively. Of course, something could go wrong during those cycles, but the type of cancer I've got, which mutates, we believe, slowly, means that my health shouldn't change until after it's mutated.
So from being very stressed in the very beginning, you're now living on a mixture of hope and successful treatment, which allows you to more or less ignore it, and a certain level of denial. Would you say that's about right to finish off the podcast?
Yeah, sure. Lots of hope, huge amounts of hope, and if I was religious, I'm sure that whatever God I believed in would be involved there. Definitely some denial. well, there's not too much, sort of realism really. I'm certainly not in a full set of denial. I'm planning stuff to work on the, things like moving house perhaps in 9 months' time, but only if I'm well enough, etc. And then just trying to analyse the risks. But of course, I've had probably 3 cycles of 3 months now where it's been the same, so it's getting easier, it's getting less stressful to actually plan things now. Difficult times. See you again soon.